Hello again. This guide I'm going to do tonight is number 6. This one is about your sleeping system. Now, your sleeping system isn't just your sleeping bag. There's a bit more to it than that. Can you sleep in just a sleeping bag? Absolutely, if that's your thing. I wouldn't advise it personally. The reason for that is the majority of the heat that you'll lose when you're asleep, you lose through the floor, because the cold ground, you're lying on there, it saps the heat away from you. So the three big factors really in terms of giving yourself the best chance for sleep is, what do you sleep under, what do you sleep on, what do you sleep in. Under is your tent, that's your shelter. What do you sleep on is your sleep mat that goes underneath you. And what do you sleep in? Sleeping bag, quilt, whatever it is you choose to do. Now, what do you need to consider when you're thinking about your sleep system? Now, your mat, most people these days use an air mat because it is the most comfortable option, and they come in all kinds of varieties. You've got different thicknesses, different widths, different lengths. You've got mummy shaped ones, square ones. They have different R ratings. The R rating is the rating of thermal reflection. So how much heat is it putting back to you that you put into it? Because it's important to remember that a sleeping bag and an air mat with a high R rating, it will not make you warm. What it does is it stops you getting cold. There's a big difference. If you get into a great sleeping bag and you've got a great air mat underneath you, but you are borderline hypothermic, you're probably not going to get warm, because it's all about trapping the heat that comes away from you to insulate you. That's from the top. From the bottom, it's about reflecting back the heat and preventing the cold from the ground and from it drawing the heat away from you. So you need to build a system, a sleep system, that's going to work for you. And everyone's different. Some people are hot sleepers, some people are cold sleepers. So you'll find that your cold sleepers tend to need a higher thermal rating on the air mat. They also need to have a better insulated sleeping bag. People who are hot sleepers can get away with much less. I know on the Fjällräven event information page, it recommends a 3-season sleeping bag. That's a 3-season sleeping bag. Okay, that's OEX Fathom EV 400. It's got what you'll find with sleeping bags is they'll have 3 temperature ratings. You'll have the comfort, the limit, and the extreme. Quick breakdown of that is, comfort is at what temperature outside of the sleeping bag can you still remain comfortable. This one, I believe, is rated to, that's -1 is comfort. Okay, you can see it on the side here. Okay, so that'll keep you comfortable to -1. On the limit is -8. That's the limit kind of that they recommend you don't go below that. -8 is quite cold, to be fair. On the extreme end is -26. Now, the way extreme was explained to me was, that's the lowest temperature you can go with this sleeping bag where it's still possible to not become hypothermic. Okay, would I trust this sleeping bag to -26? No, not even close. -8, maybe, depends. It depends realistically on what sleeping pad or system you have underneath yourself as well, because, as I said before, most of your heat goes out through the floor. Now, this is the one I use, Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite. I believe this has got a 7 R rating, which is quite high. You can get higher. A lot of your sleeping pads will be like R4, R4.5, R5, and like less as well. And with your sleeping mats, as I've said, you've got all the different shapes and sizes of them, and different weights as well. This one comes in at about 540 grams, 550 grams, I think it is, maybe slightly more than that. So it's not a heavy thing, and it's not that bulky really. I mean, the bag's a bit loose on it, but it's not that big. And I use that, but I use this underneath. It's just a very thin foam mat, foil backed. This one's actually foiled on both sides, and I really like that because that can fold down super small, takes up no space really, and it weighs 60 grams, so it's not adding a whole awful lot. Now, I've seen people say those emergency foil blankets, put one of them under your air sheet, it'll make a big difference. It doesn't. It does not work. I don't care what anyone says, science proves it doesn't. For a thermal reflective sheet to work, it has to have an air gap between it and the cold thing. Otherwise, heat or the cold is just conducted through it. If there's no air gap, it don't work. Science. So that's why I use that, because it's actually a foam pad. Now you can go more than that. You can go to something like this, which is a much thicker foam pad, and this will do a better job than that. Or you can go to the next level, which would be something like this, close cell foam mat, and that in these dints you get more air collecting, so you've got even more insulation with one of them. Problem with these is they're big, they're bulky. You either have to strap it to your backpack this way, to the side, to the top, and for me that's just too big. That one's a bit smaller, but again, I just think that's too bulky, and especially it's taking up too much space in my luggage to fly over to Sweden. So that's my go-to. Everyone has their own personal preferences, but that's me. And what I really use this for is not only to give that little extra boost to the thermal reflection, it also protects the air mat because it's underneath there. So if there's any sort of sharp stones and things underneath, it can help protect that. It's not going to be, it's not going to do a stellar job, but it helps. So that's my sleeping, just dropped that. That's my sleeping system that goes underneath me, and that reflects a lot of heat. Blow it up, lie on it, you can feel it immediately. So that's the underneath, what I'm sleeping on. What I'm sleeping in, so your sleeping bag or quilt or sleeping system, again, you've got massive scope for different variation within that. The two main differences I would say, apart from quilt or sleeping bag, because something like a Zen bivy bed, which again is something that Jerome uses, is a bit of a modular system. So there's like a head section, and then the quilt part fits to this head section that goes underneath you. So it's almost modular. It allows you more freedom of movement, but they are a little bit more bulky, a little bit bigger than some of the lighter weight sleeping bags and quilts. That aside, whether you're going quilt or sleeping bag, the main difference between the two is it down insulated or is it synthetic insulated? Now this is a synthetic bag. That's good for -1, as we've said. Okay, you can see it's not small. It's not particularly heavy. It's like 1.1 kilograms or something. Okay. This is a down sleeping bag. That's approximately the same size. There's not a million mile difference. Yeah. This is good on the comfort level to -15. On the extreme level, it's like crazy numbers. Okay. And it weighs about the same as this. And that's a difference. So down is far more insulating to its weight ratio and its volume ratio. I can squash this down even smaller if I undo the thing. It's kind of expanded inside. The only downside with down is that if it gets wet, it loses its ability to insulate. It becomes far less use to you. A synthetic bag will still work to a point when it's wet. So it's a balancing act. Do you want more insulation at the same kind of weight and probably a smaller pack size or similar, or do you want something that's going to give you still protection even when it gets wet? I mean, the easy answer to that is, for me, is down, and then just make sure it don't get wet, which, you might think is easier said than done, but when it's in your backpack, I always use a heavy duty black plastic bin bag inside my backpack, and this goes in there, and I've never gotten one of them wet yet. It's never happened. Not to say it couldn't happen, but if you don't trust yourself to do that, synthetic's the way to go. It's more reliable in terms of, by comparison to the conditions, but you pay the penalty for that with weight and size. What I'll be using in Sweden, I've already showed you me under system, is I'll be using this. This is a down quilt, Western Mountaineering one. It weighs 450 grams, so it's less than half the weight of both of those. A lot less than half the weight. Believe it or not, this will keep you warm to about -5. So that's plenty for me. And That paired with my Neo Air X Lite and the little foil undermat, I'm toasty warm. I've used this system in -7 because, like I say, if you've got a good undermat, this is slightly less important then because of where you lose your heat. You've also got the other options as well when you think about it. If as long as you've got a good mat, if your sleeping bag is, let's say it's rated to -5 and the temperature drops to -8 or 9, you can always, if you're taking a down jacket with you, an insulating jacket, you can always put that over the top. It is important to remember though that extra layers of clothing inside a sleeping bag ain't going to help, because there comes a point where you're stopping any heat from moving from you into the insulation of the bag, and by doing that it can't trap anything, so you're losing the benefit of that bag. It only works by your heat going into it. So that's why I said earlier, you can't get warm in a bag. You can stay warm and keep warm by your body heat creates this trapped hot air inside the bag. That's what keeps you warm. But if you're already cold, it's very hard to get warm. Okay, so if you're feeling a bit cold before you're getting into your sleeping bag last thing at night, do a few star jumps. If it's raining outside, do a few press-ups or something like that. Get the blood moving, get the muscles working, and you generate a bit of heat. Then get in your bag. Yes, you can wear like a pair of leggings and a base layer top or something like that, a pair of socks. You might even wear some gloves and a beanie hat. I mean, I've tried all of these things. And depending upon the temperature, I will wear those things. I always do wear leggings and a base layer top, because if you're too warm, you can always open your bag or you can always kick your quilt off. But if you're too cold, it's hard to change that. So better to be warm from the start and then cool down than to be too cold and struggle to get warm. So like I say, that's, I mean, if you look at that, it's not even close, the comparison in size wise, and that's what I'll be using. It's a lot more expensive than that, and crazy more expensive, because synthetic is a lot cheaper than down. Now, that's me mat and me bag system that I'll be using. Then the other thing I use is a pillow. Okay, so this is an example of an inflatable pillow. This is a pretty cheap one actually. I think I paid about £12 on Amazon or something, and it's got a strap that goes around your mat to stop it moving about, because that's one of the most frustrating things about pillows on a sleeping mat, is that they want to get away from you. The best way I've found of stopping that happening is not one of these straps, because it does still move about, is if you've got a spare base layer or something like that, pull that over the end of your sleeping mat and shove your pillow inside it, because then you're lying on one end of the t-shirt, your pillow's trapped and it can't go anywhere. And I've had my most comfortable night's sleep using that system. So that's probably what I'll do in Sweden. Now, in terms of pillows, you can spend anything from this sort of cheap end up to, I don't know, €100 and more. This is a pillow I've used in Sweden. You see it packs down tiny, and it actually inflates to that size. This pillow is an Seat Summit Aeros down pillow, so it's that pillow, but it's got a thin layer of down built into it, and that makes for a massive difference in comfort. It weighs next to nothing. It's, I don't know, something like, is it on there? No, I think it's about 60 grams or some 65 grams or something like that. There's no weight in it. And so you can see when you put them two together, and that foil mat, that folded foil mat, I'm taking up no room in my backpack. But like I say, the penalty for having a system like that is higher cost. This sleeping bag, I think it cost me something like, I'm going to say 45 to 50 pounds, which is what, maybe €60 or something like that. And it's a really good, I mean, like I say, I've used this in pretty salty conditions and it's kept us warm because it's paired with a good mat. So don't get us wrong, there's people who will literally just sleep on one of these, and fair play to them. If that's what you're comfortable with, fill your boots. Not for me. I'd rather be comfortable and warm, and if I get too warm, I can cool down by taking the quilt off. But I'd rather be the situation than be cold and you just have a miserable night if that happens. So that's kind of my take on the sleep system. and how best to sort of have it set up. You've got to find what works for you, as with everything else I've already discussed. And there's a million variations. I've got a 2-season sleeping bag, and I've used that probably down to about 2 or 3 degrees maybe, and it weighs nothing. It packs down smaller than this thing, and that's synthetic, but it weighs 800 grams, so it's still heavier than this one, but it's quite small, and it's the same brand as this OEX. I think it's a Phalam EV200, but that's another option, you know. So when you're deciding on what you want, my advice, personally speaking, is that the single most important piece of this kit is your mat, because if that's got no insulation, it doesn't matter how good your sleeping bag is, you're going to get cold, because the layer underneath you, insulation of a bag only works if it has air in there, if it's loft, and if you're lying on it, it's squashed. That's not insulating you. Okay, a down bag, the part underneath you is not insulating you. It's the part around the top of you that is. That's where your mat comes in. That's creating an air gap and reflective heat from the bottom. That's what keeps you warm. So if you've got a really good mat that's reflecting a lot of heat back at you, this is less important to go over the top. Okay, don't get us wrong, I'm not saying it's not important, but it's less important. You can have the best sleeping bag in the world, but if your mat's rubbish, you're still going to get cold underneath. And there's a lot of the top end ones, like Rab down sleeping bags. What they'll do is they'll pack more of the down on the top and make it very thin on the bottom, because they recognise that that doesn't really do anything anyway. Your mat does all the work underneath it. So that's everything about sleep systems. Like I say, there are other ones. The Zenbivy one is quite a unique looking system, and there's other variations. You can have them with zips at the side, zips in the centre, zip on the other side. You can have mummy ones where they're narrower at the feet and wider at the shoulder. You can have square ones. You can have them with hoods, without hoods. It's literally a case of decide what you think is going to work best for you. And honestly, I've done this myself. If you go into an outdoor store, get inside some sleeping bags, and you'll feel how much heat's coming back at you. The same with sleeping pads. A lot of them already have them inflated at the side, and that being the case, lie them down on the floor, get on top of them, and find out feel how much heat's coming back at you. Because the R ratings, most of the companies follow, there's like an international standard for thermal ratings, but there's some companies make outlandish claims about how warm their mat is, and it's just not. They'll say like, oh, this is an R5.5. There's not a cat in hell's chance that it's an R5.5. You'd be lucky if it's an R2. Most of the big companies are quite reputable, but like I say, some of them are a bit dicey. So my advice is try them out. Lie on one of the thermal mats. Get inside one of the sleeping bags and lie on one of the thermal mats, and you'll get an idea. Whatever you put underneath is only adding a little bit, realistically. So what you'll get from that, I think you get an extra 1.5 on your R rating, or 2 or something like that, which can be significant in really cold weather. But that foil backed one that I've used, that might add 0.5, but it doesn't matter because the airpad is R7. So mix and match, and it's a case of trying things out. But as I said in the video yesterday, just bear in mind we're getting close to the time. People are running out of time if they're only now thinking about what gear they need and what's going to work for them, because you're going to have to try it out, and the only way to really know how this stuff works is by trying it out. So conscious that my last video was like crazy long, and I apologize for that, so I'm going to stop that there. It's still longer than I wanted, but hopefully not too much for people. And as ever, any questions, feel free to ask in the Fjällräven Classic official page, or in the Sweden 2025 page, or on here, whichever's easiest for you, and I'll do my best, and I'm sure everyone else will, to answer your questions, whatever they might be. So yeah, I'm going to leave that one there. I'll do another one possibly tomorrow. I'll talk about your other equipment, like your cook systems, your cutlery and things like that, because again, massive variation, and it's whatever is going to work for you. So thanks for watching again. Goodbye.